adolescence. This book all came about. I was in Penn Station. I was just waiting for my train to arrive, and I noticed this family in front of me. And there was this girl, probably like 13 or 14, all arms and legs, like just kind of trying to settle into her own body. And it made me laugh, like it made me smile, reminding me of that time. And I noticed a businessman pass by and just kind of instinctively looking her way, you know, up and down. And I know that look, like that's whether she was ready for it or not, this girl was now fair game. She was prey. And I noticed an older woman pass, kind of looking her up and down the same way, but what for I imagined entirely different reasons. This woman had a look of sadness in her eyes, and maybe this woman thought the girl represented everything she thought she'd lost or everything she thought she'd never get back. But it was clear that this girl was now competition. And her train was announced, you know, it was clear they were sending her back to boarding school. And she took the escalator ride down, and, you know, I couldn't help but notice like the kind of relief, the nervous relief on the parents' faces. Like maybe they didn't know what to do with her either, but, you know, for another year, she'd be tucked away from the world, she'd be safe. And it struck me so hard in that moment of that she had no idea what she was in for. And I wanted to protect her from that in some way. And I feel like girls, young girls especially, are vulnerable to intergenerational silence. And I feel like it's something that we need to talk about a lot more. They're very uncomfortable subjects sometimes, but we don't always have to accept that this is just a rite of passage for girls, this kind of fall from grace. Like we can change things, but it's going to take all of us broaching some incredibly touchy topics. Magic. This book is full of magic, maybe not in the way you'd expect, but we all want to believe in magic, that it's all around us, inside of us. And with the Grace Year, I really want to explore that notion of whether making the reader question constantly, you know, whether the magic was real or something that the men made up to kind of keep them in line. And I mean, I think both are true. Many men have written about feminine magic, you know, in terms of, you know, the ingenue, the nymphette, the femme fatale, and, you know, someone who can like lure grown men from their happy lives and bewitch them. But they paint them as underage women, but we need to start calling them what they really are, which is girls. And we're all complicit in this. I mean, we use girls to sell us anti-aging cream and perfume and lingerie and shapewear. But I feel like we over-sexualize them as a society, and we put them on these pedestals and believe that girls are magic, but not for the sway that they hold overgrown men or anything like that. I feel like they are magic because of their resilience. And it's one of the things that I admire most in Tierney, the main character in The Grace Year. Like, she never gives up. She never gives up, no matter what she's up against. And if that isn't some form of magic, I don't know what is. Solidarity. I have a complicated relationship with this word, or this ideology. I always considered myself to be a good feminist, but it wasn't until I started writing The Grace Year that I started to really think about what that truly meant. Like, I said I supported women, but I also found myself being very judgmental against women that had different beliefs or different ideas about things than I did. And I often found myself just saying like, oh, I just don't like that woman. And I started asking myself, like, why don't I like her? Like, is there something that I find threatening in her? Does she possess a quality that I dislike in myself? And 9 times out of 10, the problem was my own. We're conditioned to be competitive with one another, and it's all around us. But the only people that benefit from that are men. And so I really do think that we as women have to take a look at our internalized misogyny. And I'm constantly checking that every day. I mean, it's an ongoing thing, but I think instead of focusing all of our attention on, which I hear a lot about, taking down the patriarchy, and that's well and good. Like we need to do that. That's a great thing to do. But I have this radical idea of, why don't we just take a little bit of that energy and stop worrying about what the patriarchy, how they view women. We need to start worrying about how we view each other. And if we even took a portion of that energy just to build each other up, like, the world would be a very different place. I truly feel like the route to like true and meaningful change is through compassion and empathy for one another. The moment that I started to meet women where they are and not where I wanted them to be, that's when my whole world opened up. It's not solidarity in terms of one mind, one purpose, but I like to think of solidarity with women in terms of one heart. And I think that's something that all women can get behind. Survival. I feel like if you just survive adolescence, that's pretty good all by itself. But on a more practical note, in relation to the grace year, I'm a big fan of this survival show called Alone. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's basically what it sounds like. You're alone in the woods. And it's trained survivalists, like professional survivalists that are sent out there to kind of, test their mettle and see how long they can last. And I always found it fascinating that it's usually not the elements or, hardships that break them. It's their own mind. And spoiler alert, they go insane. So that's good to know. But I decided I would do for this book, this crazy thing. I decided that I was going to go into the woods alone and camp in a tent. And I'm from Kansas originally, but I think I've been a city girl for too long. I had this idea that I was going to hike out there and, I was going to be one with nature, like woman hear me roar kind of experience. And it was a disaster. As soon as I got there, this cold front blew in. Everything was too wet to start a fire. I started my period unexpectedly, which was fun. And then the first night, as I'm in this tent, I hear noises outside, and I realize that I have planned this trip right on the same schedule that bears are coming out of hibernation. So I'm freezing, I'm hungry, I'm bleeding, and there's bears. So I lasted 3 days, which I'm pretty proud of myself. But I think I got some good sensory details for the book, but never again. Hope is tricky. It sometimes, if you're lucky, it comes on like some big grand event, like a beautiful light shower after a horrible storm, but often it's very subtle and much smaller than that. Sometimes just allowing yourself to hope is the bravest thing that you can do. A few of the readers told me that they really wanted the end of the grace year to have this more epic battle, between good and evil, and the women win, and it's like victory. And like, of course I want that too, but it wanted to do something different. And I really wanted this book to reflect where I think we are in the women's movement today, which is right in the middle. And nobody wants to tell the middle of the story. There is no glory in the middle of the story. But I believe that Tierney's story was worth telling. And I believed she deserved her own book. I mean, we build victories on the shoulders of those who come before us. And I needed to see that. I needed to feel that in order, to make sense of what was going on in the world. That is what I needed. We're not there yet. We got a long ways to go, but we're going to get there. And the fact that we're here together having this conversation and talking about these hard subjects, it really gives me a lot of hope.